Okay. Ooh, live comments. That's a new thing.
Ah, yeah. Interesting.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Sentimental Sensation. I'm your host, George, as always. This is the podcast where we talk about the significance and impact that music has on our day-to-day lives. Today I've got another regular guest, I guess. I think this is his third appearance now.
Yeah.
Rory, welcome.
Good to be back, George. Excited for another good
Rivalries.
episode.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking a bit about band Rivalries, which should be quite interesting. Just to kind of, I guess, talk a bit about some of the influences from various bands have, and potentially debunk some of the myths about rivalries from various bands. So should be pretty good. I guess to start off, we could a good one to start off with would probably be the Beatles and the Beach Boys.
Yeah, well,
I think carry on.
I was going to say, yeah, I guess that's them, and you could even say Beatles and the Rolling Stones as well. But I guess with the Beatles and the Beach Boys, I think they were the rivaling UK versus US at the time, particularly when the British invasion at that time as well in the American pop culture at the time as well was very influential. I guess that adds to another part of that popularity rivalry in a sense.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, when I was reading up a bit about it, it seemed like it was obviously like a very kind of positive rivalry, which was cool. And yeah, I guess the kind of British versus UK vibe. And from what I gathered from the article I was reading, it sounded like a lot, kind of like, well, especially with Pet Sounds from the Beach Boys and Sgt. Pepper's were kind of inspired by that, the rivalry between the two. So I think it started off with the Beach Boys, or maybe it was the Beatles that were influenced by the Beach Boys, and I think they brought out Pet Sounds, and then Paul McCartney heard that and he was like, "Man, this is like really cool." So then he decided that kind of influenced his take on, I guess, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Club Hearts Band, which I think is cool. So it kind of seems like I think as well that with Pet Sounds, the Beach Boys were kind of inspired by the Beatles at the beginning, but it seems like that potentially, if there hadn't been that rivalry between the two, we might have not got like two of the most iconic albums from, the 60s. I presume they would have both been out around that time. So, yeah.
Exactly right. I mean, obviously, I've even read things here and there that they had no, I guess, negativity towards each other. I think they even quite admired each other's works to different points. And I think, if anything, I think they were both trying to be the best, I guess, at creating something that was different and new, particularly from that time. I'd even argue the Beatles even started doing something new with Revolver, because you had songs like Eleanor Rigby and Tomorrow Never Comes, or Tomorrow Never Knows, sorry.
Yeah.
And they were very different songs too, and that's when they were starting to delve into that. Like, even Norwegian Wood was very different. Like, they were starting to delve into that very creative and, dare I say, a bit psychedelic as well. But obviously, Sgt. was on a whole different level. But Pet Sounds was very much like that as well. They had God Only Knows, Good Vibrations, and just different.
Best well-known work, I reckon.
And I think,
definitely.
I think it was, in terms of also, songwriting as well, like branching out, it was definitely a battle between, Lennon, McCartney, and Brian Wilson, you know, and I think people actually kind of underestimate him as a songwriter. Personally, like, I'm not a huge fan of the Beach Boys, but I do respect highly Brian Wilson's creativity, because he even kind of composed things the way he imagined from his mind. Like, particularly if I'm not sure if you've seen on, I don't know what you've seen on YouTube, but there's like a video, about a 5-minute video of the Beach Boys recording Good Vibrations, and you can see Brian Wilson, like, I'd say he wrote the lyrics as well to it, but he's kind of guiding like the other band members on, you know, what he's picturing, and he's also getting the drummer, who I believe is Hal Blaine, who I'd probably say is the most featured session drummer you probably hear.
Oh, really? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but not trying to go too much off topic.
Sure.
But I guess Paul and John were very much that way too, with, I guess, like, directing their own way of sound and influence, and
sure,
you know, I think that definitely goes unnoticed at times too.
Definitely, yeah. I just actually found it. Huh?
I said, and it worked for both of them.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I just found the article which I was trying to find because I was struggling through them, and it did mention, because obviously they had slightly different sounds going on. Because it says, basically, says in the 60s, blah blah blah, the band endless charisma on stage. This is the Beatles, and off made them the fun-loving guys who happened to be getting #1 hits. At the same time, America had their take on the pop rock sound with the Beach Boys, Boy Next Door mentality under Brian Wilson's songwriting genius. And then it goes to say, through the marketing department, yada yada, starting with the 1975 album Rubber Souls, the Beatles began to take their pop formula in a more mature direction than the standard love songs of the day. While Brian Wilson said that he loved the record, he wanted to see if it could make a good enough album to compete with his British friends, with the result being the pop master Pet Sounds. And Paul McCartney listened to that, became absolutely stunned by Wilson's work, and aimed to be even more ambitious, and started to put together tracks that would become the band's grand conceptual work, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Band, and all from a friendly songwriting battle that World got some of the greatest album experience to come out of the rock and roll genre. So, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. You know, it's just building off each other and trying to outdo each other's creativity.
Yeah, which I think is cool, because I feel like, at least out of all the ones I was reading in this article, that's basically the only kind of positive one, I guess. I mean, there's obviously like but like, I guess they're kind of like the major, I don't know, like top 10 ones or whatever, but at least from this list, that was kind of like the only mainly positive one that came out of it. But, yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people will say, as I said before, not Guns N' Roses, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles were also, I guess, the two UK rivals in terms of who was the bigger band in there. And, you know, I don't know whether exactly they were competing for anything in terms of like creativity or whatever. I think it was just the fact that it's more of a fan-based rivalry that just kind of arguing who's better, the Beatles or the Stones.
Yeah,
and I think,
true.
You know, and it was even mentioned that they had some, I guess, small feuds, but it was like fun feud. So it wasn't like actual beef. They were just, you know, stirring each other up just for fun and to amp each other up.
Yeah.
And they actually have respect for each other. A lot of respect.
It does seem that way, yeah. I mean, I feel like there's always that that stigma of like, you know, you're either a Beatles fan or you're a Rolling Stones fan. You know, you can't be one or the other.
Yeah, and there's like, I know this is completely, I guess, different genre, but you know, in Australia, like you have your hip hop, like you have the Hilltop Hoods and Bliss and Esso. People think that they hate each other, or they're like like proper rivals. And I think again, I think it's just from like who I think is better. And the thing is, they don't even know that they actually once run under the same record label. And they regularly ran into each other, and they were fine.
Yeah.
So I think Bliss and Esso just went off and wanted to do their own thing and have their own record label. So
yeah. But yeah, I guess it's kind of like the media's way of like, you know, they always want to kind of spark a kind of rivalry or a, you know, some kind of defiance between, like, you know, when there's popular bands of the day, they always want them to make it seem like they, you know, hate each other's guts, because obviously that makes more interesting stories and things.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, from what I was reading on this particular article, like pretty much what you're saying was like they got along. I mean, it did say there was a lot of feud, though a lot of the feud was in good fun. John Lennon did admit that the Stones were stealing a little too much from them with the records that they released. Even with some sniping back and forth, each band got along well with each other, with McCartney and Lennon even writing one of the band's first hits, I Want to Be Your Man, with Jagger and Richard, marking them down as primary influences. And the birth of the Beatles gave the world incredible music for two great bands, kind of thing. So it seems like obviously they were definitely a big inspiration, and obviously because that song was like one of their first hits they did. Something else I was going to say now, but I've lost track of it. Oh, that's right, yeah. Because I know there's a bit of controversy about, there's an album that Rolling Stone did that's kind of have a similar vibe to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Combined. I can't remember the name of it.
It's not Beggars Banquet.
I can't remember, but it has the song She's Like a Rainbow in.
Hang on. I can quickly look that.
Yeah.
So the album.
Oh, the I think it's called the. Oh wait, no, that's in mono.
No, that'd be.
I think. Yeah. Oh, here we go.
The Satanic Majesty's Request.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah. Because I guess because the albums themselves look quite similar, and they've obviously potentially drawn inspiration from Sgt. Pepper's. I mean, I haven't listened to the album as a whole, so I wouldn't really be able to talk too much into that. But
it's funny. There's a song on there that Kiss actually did a cover of called 2000 Man. I think it's one of the best songs that they did.
2000 Man. Oh yeah. Yeah, right, okay. Yeah. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, that's kind of the only kind of bias, I guess, that I've heard about between the two. Yeah. I've noticed as well a few of the tracks, a few of the things I was looking at involve Nirvana.
Oh yeah.
So it seemed like there was quite a lot of beef between Nirvana and I think Guns N' Roses was one, because I don't think Kurt Cobain, because I'm pretty sure it's all like Kurt Cobain most of the time. He didn't really like the sound. I think wasn't too fond of the kind of the sound that Guns N' Roses were offering.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Kurt's very, I guess, anti-commercial.
Yeah.
I think particularly that's what grunge was originally. And I think it's quite ironic that became the commercial sound by the time, he passed away. And I guess my take on that when you say that is that might be the case. But I've also heard that Axl Rose is a particularly, I don't know if it's like particularly to Axl Rose or if it's to the band as a whole, but I know Axl Rose is a particular person as well.
Yeah, well, I guess when you get two personalities like that together, you're going to have a bit of conflict between the two.
And I think I remember I was seeing this, I think it was like an MTV thing, and I think Axl was just going on about kind of a bit violently, like being really verbally violent towards Nirvana or Kurt in particular. So I do, like, now when I think about it, I do remember at least Axl saying something pretty derogatory towards, well, either Kurt or the whole band.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. It says in the article that though Axl Rose was a big supporter of the grunge movement and even wore a Nirvana hat during the band's tour cycle, Kurt Cobain wanted nothing to do with the band's style of rock and roll. When talking about them in interviews, Cobain seemed to get frustrated about GNR getting popular for what was seen as misogynistic lyrics and awful practices from the band members.
I very much like the rock and roll lifestyle of Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, well, sure, yeah. I mean, I feel like when you think of rock and roll bands that kind of, did that, Rolling Stones, Guns N' Roses are probably kind of the top of that list.
A lot of the hair metal bands were very much, talking about girls and partying and Motley Crue and Poison and Bon Jovi and they're all very, well, even Def Leppard to a sense.
Right.
They were all very, I guess, in terms of what they sang about and what they wrote in the lyrics were quite similar when you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Very kind of underlining themes, I guess.
I can get where like Kurt's coming from. Again, it's like a very anti-establishment, commercial, a very, dare I say, even a very politically correct. They come from a very politically stand up background.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose when you come from that kind of I guess area in life, it's you're very much against, I guess, like I don't know what you call it, the establishment, and trying to, do things your way without, conforming to the man or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of doing it your own way, kind of thing. But yeah, it said, given the band's volatile presence, this wasn't something Rose was going to take lightly. Since the incident, Nirvana turned down dates to open for Guns N' Roses, which sent Axl into a frenzy. This eventually culminated in the 1992 MTV Awards, where Axl started threatening him in the way Coleman compared to a middle school bully. Once they hit the stage, Nirvana fired right back with Dave Grohl goofing on the whole thing by sarcastically screaming like a super fan whenever he saw Rose in the crowd. Rose fought back. They couldn't argue that the entire rock landscape was shifting in Cobain's favor.
That's probably what I was talking about.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Good old Axl. But I think for me, in terms of negative rivalries, like actual feuds, I guess the first one that comes to mind, I guess for a lot of people even as well, who knows music rivalries well enough, would be Oasis versus Blur.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Classic.
And I think particularly, the Gallagher brothers really did not respect the way. I think it all stemmed from they just didn't like the songs that Damon Albarn wrote, because I remember seeing these different interviews in the days of What's the Story, Morning Glory, and Definitely Maybe, and they're talking talking a lot of slack about, girls and or boys and girls, where it is from Blur.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then talking about girls who do boys, who do girls, who do boys. And I think it was that award ceremony as well where I think they poked fun at Park Life.
Yeah.
And, I think with Oasis, obviously, they're never shy of controversy from other artists. I think it's something that seems rude, but at the same time you have to admire, is that they came in from the very start and kind of came off with the vibe that we're the best band in the world and you all suck. And they went about it and acted like they thought of themselves as such as well.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And there were many people who didn't really take to that very well, but you have to admire that, because I think I guess with like different times, that kind of attitude gets you there. Like if you have the right determination.
Oh, for sure,
Definitely. And again, well, I guess for all the wrong reasons, I guess it was the opposite of what happened with the Beatles and the Stones. But I guess because of the Britpop at the time, those two bands in the 90s were the biggest in the UK. But on top of that, they hated each other. And I'm not sure if they ever physically met each other face to face. But I'd imagine if they did, it would be quite.
Yeah. Well, I think from what it says, I mean, I remember watching a documentary about it where they kind of talked a bit about that. I think they did eventually kind of mend fences, but it was a kind of long time coming. I think the element of that was also the fact that one band came from like Manchester, I think it was, which I think was Oasis, and then the other band came from like, I think or maybe it was Oasis from Liverpool and Blur from Manchester, and it was kind of like that north-south rivalry kind of thing.
Well, I think the Gallagher brothers definitely being Manchester boys. They like proper Manchester boys, they would have taken that Liverpool thing pretty big. But that's the really ironic thing too, because particularly Liam idolizing John Lennon,
the
Beatles, and they're from Liverpool.
So,
I mean,
it is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Maybe they only respect them particularly, but I think I think as well during that time there was kind of like a class dynamic as well. Like I think you had kind of like the working class Manchester people, and then you had the kind of more, I don't know, like sophisticated or whatever people from Liverpool or whatever. So it was kind of, I think there was a lot of kind of cultural clashes there as well, not just the kind of fact that they both had big heads, to say the least. And I know there was one point where they both released a single on the same day to kind of see who would come out on top. So I think it was Roll With It by Oasis and Country House by Blur in August '95. And in the end, I think Blur came out on top.
Really?
Yeah, apparently.
But around. I love Roll.
Yeah.
I like Country House too, but Roll With It.
Yeah, they're both pretty good tracks. I mean, I wouldn't say Roll With It was my favourite of Oasis's archive. It's a decent song, but yeah, Country House is definitely very good. But it's funny because apparently in the interview afterwards when Oasis lost, Noel Gallagher said in the interview that he hoped that the members of Blur would catch AIDS and die.
I remember that.
Which is like, whew, okay.
Yeah, I do remember that. They're not short of telling it how it is. I think, and I think again that comes from, you said, working class background. I think they're just no nonsense. They're right to it. They don't really give any BS.
Kind of like, Yeah, I guess that's kind of probably what made the
Come at me,
biggest rock
bro,
band.
kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you come from a working class kind of part of the country, you're very inclined to, it's kind of like you've got to make your own way to, make it to the top kind of vibe. And it kind
Yeah.
of feels like the boys, the Gallagher brothers, kind of took that with them when they became famous and just, they're like pure Manchester boys at heart, kind of.
Yeah.
Keep that cocky attitude up.
Yeah. And I think
I'm
another
sure
one.
Doyle, man, but yeah.
Yeah. And another band that they looked up to was another Manchester band called the Stone Roses. And
The Stone Roses, yeah.
Yeah, and well, they pretty much started that whole Britpop thing in the late '80s.
Pretty sure they did, yeah. They were kind of the ambassadors, I guess, for that in that sense.
Yeah, well, I think some people even say the Smiths.
Oh, Morrissey, the Smiths, yeah.
Yeah, but I think they were more like, I know them and The Cure had a rivalry because I think
they did,
the indie depressive sounding.
Yeah.
And I think there was a comment. I don't know. It might be even the same article that you're reading, but apparently, I'm sorry. I think I've heard different places that Robert Smith, the lead singer of The Cure, said, "I eat meat because Morrissey told me not to." I mean, that's fantastic. I love that comment.
I think from what I read, there was some dig about one of them, like, being vegetarian or something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, I think he's another person. I think, Morrissey is known for probably having one of the biggest egos in music.
Oh, here we go.
And I think he's a very working class person as well. He came from the bottom to the top, basically, and there's even a few songs that he sings about now, like this charming man, like talking about, haven't got any suits to wear or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, and I think Robert Smith had a bit of an ego trip as well, and I think I can see where they both.
I mean, I feel like when you're that famous, you're bound to have some kind of like ego.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, how would you get to the top, kind of thing?
Yeah. But one other big rivalry that comes to mind as well is Metallica and Megadeth.
Oh yeah, I was reading about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because if people who are metal fans would know, Dave Mustaine originally was a member of Metallica, and I think while they were recording, or just like during the early days of touring, he was just a very destructive, drunk individual from.
Yeah, that's what I read. Yeah,
I think David Mustaine says to a point that some of it's true, but I think how they sent him off was pretty brutal, and I can understand why David Mustaine has a bit of a
grudge.
For quite a while, he had quite a grudge against them because I think they put him on a bus. I think I didn't sleep or something, but they put him on a bus or a train straight to back home while they stayed in New York.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then I think they ended up getting Kirk Hammett from Exodus, who ended up turning out to be quite a big metal band in the early days as well. So, but I think particularly how they treated Dave, I can understand why he was so, grudgeful of them. I don't know if that's a word, grudgeful, but we'll use that.
Grudgeful, yeah.
Yeah. But I think they ended up making amends, thankfully. I think they had the Big Four concert. I think.
I didn't mention about that.
It was them two, Anthrax and Slayer.
Yeah.
And they played on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, it says fans continue to get endless entertainment from the metal gods and the spurring guitarist who made his own dream.
It was a good I guess, comeback as well for Dave because, you know, he comes out with a heap of songs that are huge in the metal industry as well. You know, Symphony of Destruction is a metal classic.
Ah, yeah.
So that'd be up there with Enter Sandman, you know, personally.
Ah, yeah, sure, yeah.
I think that's both of their shining lights.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time when like bandmates get kicked out of bands for whatever reason, it's very hard, unless they're extremely lucky, it's hard for them to then potentially, you know, either go solo or make their own band and become as big or maybe even bigger than the band that they were originally a part of.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of another thing in a way as well. We've got Ozzy Osbourne, you know, after he left Black Sabbath, you know, I think it was more of a definitely between him and Tommy Iommi, the guitarist. And
yeah, right.
I think Ozzy was very determined to make a comeback, and as a solo artist, and not only that, he was intended to find a guitarist that was better than Tommy. I think he even told him that, like, I'm going to find someone who playing, and he ends up finding Randy Rhoads, who was actually a member of Quite Right at the time, you know, the band that went on to do Come and Feel the Noise Color.
Right. Yeah, okay.
And now Randy Rhoads is known as one of the guitar gods in the last 30, 40 years. And unfortunately, had a very short career, but you know, that blew Ozzy Osbourne straight back into popularity and on top.
Sure, yeah.
And I think it was not long before that. You know, I think Black Sabbath might have broken up. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
Or it just dissolved once Ozzy left, I don't know. But, you know, I think it was a good comeback for him, but it was a bit of a feud at the same time. You know.
I mean, I feel like it's always going to be that way, I guess. I mean, when I think of, like, incidences where members have left from bands, I always think of, like, Peter Gabriel from Genesis. He had a really, like, successful career after leaving that band.
Yeah.
But then you've obviously got, like, the flip side of the coin, like Pete Best from, I think it's Pete Best from the Beatles, who ended up having a band, but obviously, you know, nowhere as successful as the Beatles were. So.
Yeah, well, it's funny. There's a couple of people from Genesis who ended up going off having big careers. Like Phil Collins, obviously, but then he went back to Genesis.
Yeah.
They were totally different from what they were in the first place, because I remember they were kind of like, I'm not sure if you've listened to any like earlier-ish Pink Floyd, like very progressive.
Probably not, no.
That's kind of what Genesis was like. And, you know, I think Peter Gabriel even had kind of that, I'd say kind of like a David Bowie type of figure. Like he had some makeup on.
Yeah, he does a bit, I guess, yeah.
Very,
without the whole,
very
like, different personality thing.
And then the second top, like when they came back with Phil Collins, you know, it was just very synthy, you know, and like poppy 80s, like I can't sing.
I can't sing.
Yeah, Invisible Touch, and you know, it was just completely different from what they once were.
Yeah.
So
would have been interesting as to see how the band would have progressed if Gabriel had stayed with them, but I guess we would have got potentially might not have got classic hits like Sledgehammer out of it.
Salisbury Hill, I think, was the first one that he released after.
Oh, yeah.
That's another good one.
That's right, yeah. But yeah, I think as well, there was the guitarist from Genesis. He went on to form a band called Mike and the Mechanics.
Oh, yes, that's successful.
Right.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
I don't know what happened to the keyboard player. I think, as far as I'm aware, he didn't really have a career after that. So guess it was 3 out of the 4 that got big afterwards.
Yeah. So have you got any other rivalries that come to mind?
The one I was just looking at here is you know, Mr. Bungle?
I think that's the band that Mike Patton from
Faith No More.
Yeah. That's
So
his
it
side
says,
project.
yeah,
Very
so it
weird there.
says there's a rivalry between them and Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise. Well, even between Chili Peppers and Faith No More, like I don't know. That you'd think I'd know this because I'm a Chili Peppers fan, but
Yeah,
I don't know honestly much about it. But I know those two are
yeah,
very, rap rock.
rap, rock, funk, heavy, yeah,
Yeah, because you had one, I guess, early '90s. You would have had Chili Peppers releasing things like "Give It Away" and "Suck My Kiss," and
give
then
it
you
away.
have
Yeah,
Faith No More with like "Epic" and other songs
yeah,
like that. I don't know many of this. Or Easy Like Sunday Morning, their cover of that was a very different song, but
yeah, easy. That's kind of the one I think that's the first song I ever heard of theirs, and then you've also got I think there's another of theirs. This is like a classic, which I'm pretty sure Jamie
yeah, hang
likes.
on.
I forget the name of it, but
Yeah, it's probably the one I'm thinking of. Hang on,
yeah,
doing some research, people.
but
The one. Oh, Ashes to Ashes. That's the one I was thinking of, but I don't know if that's one.
okay.
Oh, Falling to
No, I
Pieces.
wasn't thinking falling to pieces, maybe. Faith No More.
That's from the same album as Epic.
Yeah, okay. Unless I'm thinking of a different artist, but I thought it was Faith No More.
Could be Mr.
Yeah, maybe
Bungle.
I'm thinking of a different artist. Yeah, oh, I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think it was Mr. Mo from memory,
But
but anyway, yeah,
what was the feud
but,
lit between the
yeah.
two?
So basically, it says back in the day in Faith No More, Anthony, I'm not sure how you say his last name, Kiedis, had already
Yep.
called out Patton for ripping off his vocal style, but that only proved to be the top of the iceberg. Patton was also focused on getting a rise out of Kiedis that he was originally going to release Mr. Bungle's Effort California on the same day as the funk rock god album Californication. Though the band
Oh,
eventually acquiesced and changed their release date, this didn't stop the live gig where Patton mockingly called his band members flea and performed covers of Red Hot Chili Peppers songs with the wrong lyrics.
wow. That's a weird way to go about a rivalry.
Yeah.
I mean,
Definitely something a bit different and more unique, I guess.
well, I think we definitely know who won. Well, it's kind of like the country house and roller
Yeah,
thing, but now I think we can definitely say who won that
yeah,
because I don't think much people would know of the Mr. Bungle album. I mean, Californication was
yeah.
the comeback album, like one of the best comeback
Well,
albums of the last 20, 30
yeah.
years.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it goes on a bit more, but basically by the end, you kind of figure that Mr. Bungle basically had it. Once the band mocked deceased guitarist Hill L.
Oh, Hell
Slowback by
Slowback.
pretending to shoot heroin. It became too much for Kiedis to handle. When organizing the Bid Day Out Festival in 2000, Kiedis was able to remove Mr. Bungle's slot, which Patton said severely hurt their potential going forward. Even with 20 years of hindsight, it seemed that the fire between the two bands hasn't quelled just quite yet.
Yeah, I can
So, yeah.
understand them being that angry at Mike Patton. I mean, to diss a deceased member like that, like
Oh, yeah, that would be pretty, like,
that's
yeah, that's
that's going over
pushing
the
it a bit
line.
too far.
Like, and
Yeah,
the Chili Peppers going out of their way just to pretty much ruin Mr. Bungle's chance of gaining,
just as, yeah,
gaining, like, I guess, a future. I mean,
yeah,
I guess that's karma in a way. I know it's a bit of a biased
almost, yeah,
opinion
yeah.
from
I mean,
me,
I guess
but
it just goes, just
yeah,
goes to show that if calls out things like that, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get a good ripping
will
if
ruin you.
you
Like
resort to
watching
that
Dallas.
kind of behavior. What
I
was
like watching
that?
the show Dallas, that really old soap opera. Like, I'm gonna ruin you.
I never watched that, but I heard it was a pretty full on show.
Yeah, Yeah, for like, it's just, I'm not into soap operas much, but it's just got some funny scenes.
Yeah,
It's just, I'd probably rather watch that though than the ones that they have now, like Bold and Beautiful
like
and
Neighbours and
Neighbours.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does get a bit old after a while, I feel. I mean, I used
Mm.
to be into it when we first came over, I think just because of the nostalgic reference and the famousness from living in the UK, but eventually it wore off.
Yeah.
Apparently, there was also a rivalry between Nirvana and Pearl Jam,
I can understand that
which
one.
I don't think was as confrontational as Guns N' Roses one,
I feel
but
it's
I
probably
think that
both a mix of, because I think they kind
yeah,
of thought they were, it's kind of stealing each other's thunder a little bit, but at the same time as well,
yeah,
the
probably,
top of the
yeah,
grunge.
yeah,
Yes. Again,
hierarchy, I guess,
like Beatles and Stones with their type of
different,
music at the time.
yeah,
Those two were the top of the grunge popularity trend at the time, and I don't know if they were doing like a thing to see who's better, and it might be again the same
yeah,
thing. Nirvana, particularly Kurt, came from I guess, a disadvantaged background. Well, actually, no, they both
yeah.
kind of did in a way. Actually, because Eddie Vedder, I think, grew up without a dad, and I think they
Okay,
had more of a, I guess, in terms of their later years, I think they were more, Seattle beaches
yeah.
and
Yeah, it's just the kind of that classic growing up poor, defending yourself, becoming very, I don't know, like, I don't know what
mm,
the word is, but yeah, like, you know, keeping the world out and becoming very resilient, I guess, to a lot of the
mm,
kind of issue, well, not issues, but I guess like the result of, living up, growing up poor and having to kind
mm,
of fight your way to the top, as it were.
mm. And I think it might. I don't know if this is like in what you read, but I don't even know if
Yeah,
it's true. But I think Pearl Jam kind of went along in a way, like with how popular they were becoming. Like they didn't change themselves because
embrace
of,
it. Yeah,
yeah, but they kind of they didn't hate the
not
popularity they were
embrace
getting.
it.
Whereas Nirvana, they got pretty, but they were right up the very top really, and if they were the
Yeah,
world's biggest band basically. And
at the
I think
time.
at the same time, I guess for different reasons, particularly Kurt hated that. He became the
Yeah,
very thing that he didn't want.
he did want. Yeah, I think that probably resulted in his overall downfall and eventual death. I'm presuming.
Yeah. So I don't know if that even was a thing.
Yeah,
They
factor.
kind of didn't like how Pearl Jam went on to kind
Yeah,
of be commercial, or they maybe saw them as commercial.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, basically it just says, as Cobain began being asked about bands like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, Cobain had a few choice words to say about Eddie Vedder's outfit. In an effort to hold on to his indie credibility,
Mm,
Cobain called Pearl Jam a mockery of the grunge aesthetic, with a sound that
yeah,
is too in
yeah.
line with classic rock to be considered truly alternative. Though PJ
Mm,
were a bit on edge at first, they were able to take it in stride and be mindful of their decisions going forward. And
well,
it goes on to say that eventually they kind of like they were seen together at the MTV Awards when Eric Clapton did Tears of Fears, and they were kind of seen, like making amends, I guess, and I think it said like dancing around with each other. So yeah,
yeah. I was going to say, it doesn't really say anything about what they said about Soundgarden, but they pretty much, like, if you're
yeah,
calling Pearl Jam classic rock, Soundgarden were pretty much the same. But um, Pearl Jam, I guess there's some members who pretty much had backgrounds from the very beginning of grunge music. I'm not sure if there was a band in the late 80s, early 90s called Mother Love Bone.
okay,
And I think they were seen as the first grunge band to kind of have any
commercial
commercial,
success.
or just even
Well, no
attention. Like,
noticeability. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I think was Stone Gossard and Jeff Ament. Like after I think the band dissolved because I think the lead singer had died of a overdose, which I think eventually was a bit of a thing that eventually happened to a lot of grunge icons over the next few years. But they ended up going on to form Pearl Jam with a couple of different members from other groups.
Yeah.
So, to say that Pearl Jam, like a mockery, like they don't even sound, that as well. And Soundgarden pretty much have, the same background. Like they're one of the original, I guess, forefathers of grunge, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Well, I'm surprised they don't, if they haven't said anything about Soundgarden, I'm kind of surprised, but...
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like it was specifically aimed at Pearl Jam, but yeah, it's kind of funny.
Or Eddie.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, they're both good.
Could be the clash of heads again.
Who? I'll ask this: Who would you pick? Okay. Pearl Jam or Nirvana?
Oh, that's a good one. I think I might have thought about this before. Actually, I mean, as much as I admire and appreciate Nirvana, I think in terms of when it comes to like the songs, I think I have to go for Pearl Jam because, like specifically Alive, like I have a real soft spot for that song, and just I think recently kind of getting a bit more into Pearl Jam from like buying a few of their albums and stuff and kind of learning a bit about some of the, I guess, history and stories behind the music. I kind of think for me it's Pearl Jam, but obviously credit to Nirvana as well, because I guess without them we wouldn't have Foo Fighters as well.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, well, I think even if they continue, I think Dave Grohl, well, not going too much off the Rivalry subject, but I think he already wrote a lot of the songs and he was already planning that project.
Yeah.
In a way. So
I kind of got that vibe from what I've read,
Yeah. And I think Kurt was kind of, encouraging him to do it at the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I might be completely wrong, but I swore I saw that somewhere. But,
I mean, it's interesting. Especially because I guess, Grohl being a very like multi-instrumentalist and kind of starting off at the back of back of Nirvana, and then all of a sudden he's like, the lead singer and guitarist of Foo Fighters kind of thing. Definitely a step forward, I guess. Or
he'd be one guy I'd love to meet, Dave Grohl. He just seems like a very fun character.
Yeah.
To be around.
From all the interviews I've seen and everything, he just seems very like cool and chill and
well, they call him, I don't know about this title, but they call him the nicest guy in rock and roll.
Oh, really?
I guess I don't know what their definition of nicest, like maybe welcoming and good to the fans and people. Like I can understand that. Like I'd probably agree with that. But he's not like sweet and angelic and none of that. I mean, he's definitely not that. But he's not a prick either.
Nice. I feel like he's got a bit of he's got kind of that kind of darker side to him, but he's also got the kind of fun, jokey personality, I guess.
Yeah.
But speaking of Dave Grohl, there was also another rivalry here between him and Hole. Yeah, Courtney Love. Yeah, I think
a lot of that had to do with, I guess, what happened with Kurt and also their daughter as well.
Yeah, because there was like some accusation that he like did. I don't know. Yeah.
I think the main argument was like royalties, though. I think.
From what I kind of hear, but I think from what I gathered, it was kind of like Grohl kind of thought of her as a bit of a loose cannon, I guess, in that sense. That she was
I can see where he's coming from with that.
Yeah, and I think from what it also said, kind of her having like this kind of manufactured personality that she potentially hid behind. I don't know too much about that, but
Like, I mean, I can definitely see where he's coming from, to the point even where now, Kurt and Courtney's daughter doesn't even want much to do with her mother. Like, I guess, I don't know if she still talks so much, but she's even got something against her. Like, I think when you even look at that, you can kind of see who's in the right and who's more in the wrong in that situation.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. Yeah, it says that Grohl was accused of making advances towards daughter Frances Bean, which Frances has since denied.
Yeah.
Yeah. But apparently the song I'll Stick Around by the Foo Fighters was directed at
Love that song.
Yeah.
That's a great song. I love it.
But I mean, it said when Nirvana was inducted into the Hall of Fame, it sounded like they potentially kind of resolved the issues, but yeah.
Oh no, I've even heard things nowadays, like there's still a bit of a feud going around. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe more from Courtney.
Yeah, probably, yeah. I don't know how old she is now, but yeah.
I think, like, me, I think Courtney comes off as one of those people who kind of brings up trouble just to get attention and back in the spotlight again.
Yeah.
Whereas people just don't really care for her anymore, and she's not really that relevant.
Yeah.
I think, she stirs the pot a little.
Kind of faded into it.
Obscurity.
Whatever you call it. Obscurity, that's the word I was
looking
looking at.
She wasn't a bad artist in the 90s or anything. Hole was okay. But, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I only know like the most well-known song, which was I forget the name.
Celebrity Skin.
Yeah, Celebrity Skin. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple I know, like some I don't remember the name of, but yeah.
Yeah. Funny at the end of that. I was just going to say at the end of the article, it says things may have been turbulent in the 90s, but the amount of good and good guy Grohl seems to know no limits these days. Which I guess was kind of reference to when you were saying about him being like the nicest guy in the rock or whatever.
And I guess going back to rivalries, I think, one thing I guess when people don't discuss a lot when I read different things about rivalries is rivalries within bands.
Oh, for sure.
One big common thing I found with a few of them is if it's like brothers or whatever in the band.
The Gallagher brothers.
Exactly. That's the classic one. They're right at the top of that again. They haven't talked to each other for a good 10, 15 years, or how long it's been since they've split up. And I think everyone's
see each other at like family reunions or something.
Yeah, well, it's even been people like even like other siblings or that, like they try and or not like hang with them at different times so they're not around each other. That's ridiculous.
I know, it's pretty crazy.
And you have other big ones. You have the Davey brothers from the Kinks. You have
okay.
I don't know their last names, but I know all the Kings of Leon guys. They're related somehow, and I think they're still together. But I think there's times where they don't mind each other, but I think there's times where they just argue and they just hate each other.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of some other ones. I know. The Everly brothers. I'm not sure if you know that old group.
Okay. I know the Everly brothers. I didn't know they had a rivalry there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened, but I think I don't know what was happening behind closed doors, but apparently one of them walked off stage and and then one of something talks through on the works, and then the other one came back on stage and told the crowd that they were officially finished.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting way to. to end the groove, I guess.
Yeah, and I think they got together for a reunion tour too. But and you have the Beach Boys as well, because I'm not sure if you knew that Mike Love was the cousin of the Wilson brothers.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
right.
and I know between him and Brian, I think there's just a lot of not
Unresolved
good blood
issues.
between them. And I think that's why they're very on and off over the years and getting back and doing live things. And I think Brian just doesn't like how plain Mike is, I think, at times. And
Fair enough.
I don't know. I think I've got. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I think it's just. Songwriting credits and royalties were the main feud, and
Okay.
and I think Brian Wilson later on is kind of like, I don't know why he doesn't want to tour with me anymore.
Yeah.
But
kind of that mentality or whatever.
and then as well, you have your rivalries of like bands that have relationships within the band, I guess. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean Fleetwood Mac's probably a classic example of that, or even ABBA.
Yeah, they're the two I was going to say. And I guess that kind of led to ABBA's demise back in the day.
Yeah, did kind of seem that way.
Yeah, whereas Fleetwood Mac continued on for a bit, and then had that little break, and then they came back. And only now they've kind of just, Lindsey Buckingham went his own way again. Now they've got Neil Finn in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. I actually, I was watching Stephen Colbert last night, and they had Lindsey Buckingham perform with his solo album, which was, quite interesting.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the song was called, but yeah.
And
so
I think
I was looking at the guy, and I was like, I'm pretty sure he's from Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
To look
and
at
I guess when you look at it, that's, I guess, a negative turned into a positive in terms of particularly back in the days of like Rumors.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
how a negative can turn into a positive. Like how, because I think there was just times where apparently Stevie and Lindsay would just not talk to each other at all. They just wouldn't even look at each other. So when they were walking around, they just...
Yeah, because I know there was like disputes between the band, but I wasn't sure like which specific members were kind of like were having the issues.
Yeah, and there's one, I guess there's like different documentaries you'd have to watch to know.
Sure, yeah.
What I'm talking about here, but the Mamas and the Papas even had that happening because.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay.
The guitarist John Phillips was married to Michelle Phillips, who was the blonde Mama Michelle, the blonde lady.
Yeah, the blonde right. Yeah.
And what's his name? Brian Dennehy or whatever his name is, the lead, the Papa Brian, whatever his name is. He ended up having an affair with Michelle. But here's the thing, that Mama Cass actually had a huge crush on Brian.
Oh no.
Denny was his name, I think. Hang on.
Denny, the Hurty, is it?
Yes, Denny Doherty. Oh, who's Brian Dennehy? Hang on. Brian Dennehy.
Michelle Phillips, Cass Elliot, John Phillips. And it's also got a few
he's an actor. Of course. Okay. Have you seen Rocky? Not Rocky. Rambo.
Probably, but like a long time ago that I probably don't really remember.
He's like the main antagonist in that movie.
Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah, so Denny Doherty, that's who I was thinking of. So Mama Cass had a huge, she had the thing going for him, and then when he found out that she was having the thing with Denny, she was after Michelle saying, "Don't you take my man." And then it was just a whole mix going in the band.
The mess of
and I think led to the whole
complicated
dissolvement.
relationships.
Yeah, and Michelle and John ended up getting a divorce, and I think
Yeah,
Cass ended up trying one more time for Denny, and he's like, no.
yeah.
And
Wow, yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, I just find that very amusing. It's just very
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
John pretty much was the only. Well, from what I heard, John was a very what's the word? Very there's a great word. Like
yeah.
he's been described as not a very nice person.
Oh, like stubborn or
A
something like that.
scandalous individual. That's
Ah,
what
yeah,
I'd
okay,
say.
yeah.
But,
Interesting, yeah.
but funnily enough, out of everything, it seemed that he was the only one within the band that wasn't really mixing at all, or causing any troubles within the band as such. Like
I
he was
see, yeah.
kind of out of that love triangle.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought that's a very interesting, I guess, feud that kind of grew as the band went on. And then you've got things that aren't really like that. John, Paul, and the Beatles, they kind of had a bit of a feud in their last couple of years.
Yeah, but I think that from what I gather, they eventually made amends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Yeah, when I think of this isn't music related, but I always think of William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, because apparently they had a falling out to the point where William Shatner didn't even attend Leonard Nimoy's funeral. Like it was that toxic that they never made a movie before he died, which is kind of sad.
Mm. Yeah, it's very interesting.
You heard of a band called The Pavement?
I've heard of them. Don't think I've heard anything, or at least I don't know that they've sung songs that I may have heard of on the radio.
Yeah, there's another. Yeah, because there's another feud here between Pavement and Smashing Pumpkins.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know Billy Corgan's also known, the lead singer from them, is known to have a bit of an ego. But,
yeah.
I haven't seen much to know that well. But, yeah.
I mean, I could read you what it says. A lot of the alternative godfathers of the genre, from Bob Mould from Husker Du to produce Steve Albini, felt that the band were using the alternative sound as a means to become worldwide stars. Though these guys may not have had their grievances, no one was as blunt about their feelings as Pavement, who called out the band on their song Range Life, where they were accusing them of not really having a function in the scene. And it goes on to say, while the initial jam was meant in good fun, Corgan was actually hurt by the song and threatened to not play their Lollapalooza date if Pavement was added to the lineup. After choosing to play the next year, Pavement ended up becoming the perfect example of alternative music being washed away from the cooperative cash-ins of the scene. Corgan may have been pop's anti-hero, but at this point he looked like the pampered rock star who didn't have time to confront critiques of his work.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
There's a couple I was reading on this thing I just kind of looked up that I completely forgot about. One of them, in the American, I guess, gangster rap scenes of the 90s, you probably call it, Tupac and the Notorious B.I.G. I think that was like the peak of, or Biggie Smalls, I think was the other name.
Yeah, I think I've vaguely heard of him.
Yeah, I think that was the whole peak of West Side or West Coast versus East Coast.
West for East, yeah.
Yeah.
The classic Blur versus Oasis.
Yeah. And I think, and I think at the time as well, they both were assassinated or had like drive-by shootings, and they were killed in that
Oh, really?
about the same
Okay,
time.
wow.
I think at the start they were okay, but something grew between them, I guess, in terms of the rivalry there, and
Yeah,
I
probably.
kind of thought that both of the deaths, or at least Biggie's death, was linked after what happened with Tupac, like some kind of revenge
Yeah.
game. I don't know, but
Is he the one that passed away? Because I know there's like some famous rapper who got,
they both did.
I don't think, died or got killed or something. Yeah.
No, they both did. Tupac,
Okay.
I think he had.
Was he the big fella? Because I think
No, that was
I
Biggie
remember there was some
Smalls.
like, oh, that was Biggie Small. Yeah,
Tupac, I think he's a bit of a shorter dude, but he's like well toned. He'd had like the bandana wrapped around his head, and he's got like a little
yeah.
goatee.
I think he did that song. Was it
California Love.
California Love?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
him.
that's the one. Yeah.
Biggie does the songs like Big Popper and Hypnotized.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
right.
but Tupac, I think he was at a Mike Tyson fight at Las Vegas earlier that night.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah,
I think
right.
I think there was like video footage of him being in some brawl. I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah,
But
right.
sometime later on, he was driving with Suge Knight, who was the head of Death Row Records, and he's a very shady human, that guy. But that's a whole different
Yeah,
story.
right. Sure,
But,
yeah.
and there's a picture of him in the car with him, and about 10 seconds later was when he got shot.
You got shot. Yeah.
And
Yeah, right.
I don't remember exactly what happened with Biggie. I don't know if he was in his house but someone did a drive-by shooting with him as well.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So,
Doesn't sound like a good place to live.
well, here's the thing, Tupac was in California, whereas Biggie was in New York. Two different ends.
What was when was this in like the 80s or something?
Mid-latish 90s. So I think Tupac was 96 and Biggie was a year later.
Because I'm if like the sort of black racism was still kind of a thing in America around that time or not.
Well, I think it was just a whole, as I said, a thing of, East Coast versus West Coast. And I think as well, I don't know, this might be a bit of a controversial comment, but,
Sure.
within African American culture, there's, I think, like dealing with issues, like inner issues, I think they have a way of going about it. I guess that they have to, like a gang fight or just like territory or just a
for sure.
They just kind of think that, like, I guess more so back then that was just a way of dealing with things.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It still is nowadays. But
And I guess this is more general now, like particularly just in America as a whole. I just think that solving problems with a gun is the way to go about it.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. There's so many people I'm sure have died for that way, whether famous or not. But,
yeah, and another one I was just reading about was Marilyn Manson versus 9 Inch Nails.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that one. Yeah,
and I think like because obviously they're very like industrial metal, like very gothic. And I think Trent was digging at Manson for being an addict and like a Satanist and other things, and he's still. He's not known for being a very like angsty person either, but I think nowadays Manson's just sitting. I think he said that he doesn't know what they're fighting about anymore.
Oh really? Yeah, it's just kind of
still going on about
it. Yeah.
And I just find that pretty amusing. And
for sure,
trying to see. Leonard Skinner versus Neil Young.
Oh, Neil Young. That's a classic one. How did we forget that one? Yeah.
And
there's even a song to like compliment it.
in Sweet Home Alabama. Even they made a comment about, maybe Neil Young being fake Southern
Yeah.
man or Southern rocker because he's from Canada.
Yeah.
But,
I
I
have to
think
look up
it's,
the lyrics for it.
yeah, like,
I mean, there's probably
but
a whole backstory to it, but
apparently they apologized.
okay.
That was just one misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so Neil Young kind of lumped Leonard and other Southern rockers of the era with slavery and South's less than stellar racial past.
Yeah, sure,
So,
yeah.
and I
And
think,
that's when
yeah,
he kind of like said, Alabama's a really great place, sweet home
yeah,
Alabama.
and I've never
Yeah.
been to Alabama, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because it says, well, I heard Mr. Young sing about her. Well, I heard old Neil put her down. Well, I hope Neil Young will remember. Southern men don't need him around anyhow.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I know they have a lot of tornadoes there, but that's about all I know about Alabama.
Yeah, a famous
Mm,
song named after it. For
mm.
some reason, Forrest Gump is coming to mind. I think, I don't know,
Oh, yeah.
he was from Alabama,
Mm,
but I think when I was I read a bit more into that dispute between the Cure and the Smiths. And it was saying the feud mostly started when Morrissey was interviewed regarding his feelings on certain artists. Never one to mince words, the Smiths frontman said that he would be happy to see Roger Smith dead and called the Cure's musical ventures a new dimension in the word crap.
wow.
While Smith took the entire thing in stride at first, he stood up for himself once he was called a fat clown in makeup.
Uh, yeah, I can see where he's coming from. Like, he was a
Yeah.
really freaky looking guy,
He
Robert
definitely
Smith,
had
but I
that
guess,
gothic kind of vibe to him. Yeah, I think the whole band
yeah.
kind of did.
Whereas Morrissey kind of looked like a human peacock. And that big,
Oh yeah, his hair. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think the Weekend might have now taken his place for that, but
Ah, true. Yeah, he
yeah,
probably got some inspiration there.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, they both,
Yeah,
Morrissey and Smith both had their different appearances that were very
yeah.
iconic.
It also said once he cleared up the fact that he had never met Morrison, Smith expressed that he absolutely loathed his critics' behavior, calling out Morrissey's infatuation with the vegetarian lifestyle. Smith
Mm,
said that he would deliberately eat meat every time
yeah,
Morrison mentioned his animal rights stance, giving all the vitriol, that is, they spew out in the press. It's no wonder that each of these bands have put out so much dark material in their songs.
that kind of reminds me of. I'm not sure if you remember seeing that headline in. I think those like they had like a big animal rights like vegan activist
Oh
rallies
yeah.
in the city, and two guys just came in with the KFC box, some kind of like a twister box or like a mega box or whatever box, and they just started eating
Yeah.
chicken in front of
Oh yeah.
everyone. Um, that kind of reminds me of that, when he says that he'll
Yeah.
eat whenever Morrissey mentions anything about animal rights. That kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely got some very dark music though, those guys. Because I remember buying their Greatest Hits album recently. I think it was their Greatest Hits. And I always think of their classic song. I think it's like I can't remember what the song's called. It's like Driving in My Car or Please Don't Let Me Leave.
Was this the
And
Smiths?
the Smith song, and there's
How soon is
that
now?
one could be.
Yeah,
Oh, oh no,
they have
sorry,
a
not that
few.
song. Or maybe it was a different song. But there's a
There's the
line where it's like,
23rd.
um, And if a double-decker bus crashes into us, to give my life by your side would be like bliss or something. I was like, wow, that's pretty dark.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know what song it is. It's
Yeah,
There's a Light That Never Goes Out.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
Yeah, I have that. There's also The Boy with the Thorn in His Side. They have pretty long titles. Heaven Knows I
yeah,
Miss You Now. This Charming Man's even got some dark tones
yeah.
to it. Yeah, then you have The Cure, which Boys Don't Cry, Forest.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Boys to cry.
yeah,
Just like
Lullaby.
heaven. Friday on my mind. Wait, no, that's I'm thinking
Oh,
of
Easy Beats. Friday I'm in Love with
Easy
The Cure.
Beats. Yeah, Friday I'm in love. Sorry, yeah, but yeah, we got some
Um,
good tracks.
Close to Me, I don't know what that song's about, but that film clip as a kid used to really freak me out because they're in that little cupboard. They get slowly pushed off a cliff, and I think it's a dream. I think what they did
Oh,
is, I think the story behind that film clip. I know again we're going off topic here,
yeah, that's all
but
good.
I think the vision of that was a dream that Robert Smith had.
Okay,
He was dreaming that he
yeah,
was stuck in a cupboard or whatever it was, and
wow, okay,
falling off a cliff.
yeah, for sure,
And he put that as a way to mesh it in the film clip.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's
So
pretty dark compared to the video clip for Friday I'm in Love where they're goofing around wearing
oh
different
yeah,
hats and
yeah,
all this
and they
other
have the
stuff.
Indian butler go like,
Yeah. Oh, classic.
mm.
Oh dear. Another thing I was going to mention as well in regards to the Blur and Oasis thing, it said ever since their prime in the 90s, Oasis seem to have made their peace with the matter, with Liam Gallagher calling Blur a guilty pleasure, and Noel even lending a hand to Damien's project Gorillaz in 2017. Each band's
Oh.
golden period may have been a bit nasty, but over time things have been able to sort themselves out. So.
Never thought I'd hear that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
they could fix the shattered relationship between the two bands, but they can't between the two
yeah.
brothers. So it would
Mm.
seem. But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much all I had, unless there was something else you wanted to add.
Well, I guess another thing I thought of that isn't really mentioned a lot is it's another, I guess, within the band thing is Kiss.
Oh
And
yeah,
I guess it's more of, Gene and Paul, the Demon versus the Star Child versus Ace and Peter,
yeah,
who are the original, the Tomcat and the Spaceman. And,
okay,
I think I can get why, Paul and Gene had to move on from them a couple of times because I think, the other two's place, well, I think with Peter, I think they kicked him out both times, but I think Ace left
okay.
on both occasions and they kind of made it out as if they kicked him out.
Ah, yeah, for
And I
sure.
think
Yeah.
they kind of just slandered them over the years. I think Gene's gotten a lot better. They had a documentary recently, and I think Gene's become a lot more honest, which is good. But I think Paul
Yeah.
still takes a bit of a jab, and I don't think
Oh, for
the other two
sure.
appreciate it. And the guy who replaced, or who's now the spaceman,
Yeah.
I think I think at the time during their reunion in the 90s, he was their tour manager or one of their
Yeah.
managers.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I think Ace kind of saw that as when he took over as the spaceman afterwards, that he was looking for his job kind of thing.
Okay.
I think it's just mostly a finger pointing thing of who did what. And
Yeah,
he said, she
as it
said,
seems to be the case with a lot of things.
yeah. And it's just, I think I think to the point where they just don't invite them on, because they have a thing called the Kiss Cruise.
Okay.
Each year, or they did have it, but they'd usually go on this cruise for a few days, and they on this big, huge, cruise ship, and they play concerts, and they'd have side bands as well, like supporting acts, and usually they'd have at least Ace in there, like he's usually in there, but him and Peter, I think, weren't invited for that, or they weren't going to be invited to be a supporting act for their final tour. Because obviously hanging up the boots very soon.
Sure,
yeah. But yeah, that's another one I kind of thought of.
Yeah. When you said Spaceman, was that like the title they gave one of their players or something?
Yeah, well, it's the persona that each of the four came up with.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Like Ace Frehley had the Spaceman. Well, I think it was, he liked technology, he liked space.
So he became
Spaceman. That was the thing he painted when he was doing his face makeup. And Paul wanted to be the star, and he became the star child or the star man. I think Gene Simmons, he liked horror movies. He liked demons.
So he got the kind of
Yeah, and I think I don't know exactly what was the story with Peter, whether he just liked cats, or I know in the early days involved in a few car accidents, but he kind of got off of them unscathed, so they kind of felt he was someone with 9 lives, like a cat.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so
right.
I think that may have been another factor, or might have been the main one for what made him become the cat man. Or the Tom Park, as we call it. But
sure.
And there were bands when they, so there were band members when they first left that came in. Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent. They had their own characters.
Okay.
When they came in, I think Eric was the Fox, Vinnie Vincent was the Yank Warrior, and they had other members after that. But that was when they didn't wear their face makeup for a while, so they didn't really have a persona. But I think when Eric Singer came back and they had Tommy Thayer, they took on the cat and the spaceman personas, because I think that was another thing that Ace and Peter don't like, is that Paul and Gene took their creation and gave it to these other two because they felt that people identified Kiss more with the original 4 personas. And they did it for more commercial, I guess, publicity kind of thing.
Sure.
They didn't want to introduce new characters that people weren't comfortable with.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I guess it's always a bit of a. Well, I know they always say people despise change.
Yeah. I can get both sides. I can understand that,
Sure. You want to keep the original kind of concept, I guess.
Yeah, and just to keep the familiar
Kiss rather than trying to change it or whatever.
Yeah, that people know, but at the same time, I can understand that, those characters at the beginning was something personal in creation to Peter and Ace, and I can understand why they might have not liked that decision.
What's the word, like ridicule that or whatever,
But I know they haven't really been on, well, the greatest of talking terms.
Sure, yeah.
Particularly the last 5 years. I think with any feud, I think social media's amped that up, or given them
for sure, yeah.
Given them more platforms to feed that feud.
Put their case or whatever, across to the world and get millions of people to put in their 5 cents to the argument.
And I think it was even to the point where, like Kiss, they've done that big documentary earlier this year that Peter and Ace didn't want to be interviewed for that. Because they felt that they didn't want to be part of the narrative that they didn't agree with.
Fair call,
So,
I guess that makes sense. They would want to kind of feed into the machine, as it were.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Cool.
That
was interesting to know. Awesome. Well, unless you got any... Huh?
I was going to say if you had anything else in mind.
Oh, no, I've pretty much run out of content.
Fair enough.
I think we're pretty much past our hour or so now, so I think we've done pretty well.
Fair enough.
Hour and a half, I think. But yeah. Always good to chat, as always.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by again for the third time.
No worries.
What is it called? Like a hat trick now that you've been 3 times.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the one after hat trick is called, but we'll see if we can make that in the next couple episodes. See how we go, I guess.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again for coming on, and thank you all for listening. Till next time, catch ya.